This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so now we're going to record it. So what we're going to do is each commissioner, we have a 45-minute interview process. Each commissioner is going to have either a 5-minute time slot or a 10-minute time slot, and we're going to go in order. Commissioner Kelly is first, the first question, then me, then Commissioner Walsh, and then Commissioner Stetton, and we'll push through on the questions, and then there'll be a 5-minute time frame at the end to get any closing comments. So we'll go next. All right. Looking forward to it too. So without further ado, Commissioner Kelly, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Then I will exercise my 5 minutes.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming today for this interview. I'm going to start out by asking you, what we're doing today is interviewing for the remainder of the commissioner's term. So we've 7 months. And I'd like to ask you what you hope to accomplish if you are commissioner for this 7 months term.
What I would like to accomplish is basically I've given you my list of my accomplishments in my career. My background is in finance and accounting, and also in the development of policies and procedures. I retired recently after 16 years as vice president of finance, vice president of retail audit for a big company in Philadelphia, for the implementation of 45,000. So I have an ability to look at financial matters with the perspective of an auditor. You ask the question of why this, why that, or how about this. That is my specialty in looking at financial numbers. So I have an MBA in finance and accounting. Then, in addition, before joining the government, I was the manager of policies and procedures at Air Products and Company and Security also. So I have experience in formulating policies and procedures for large organizations. So these are 2 areas that I could help, I could contribute, and so I'm now retired. My skills are current, and I have both the ability and the availability to contribute to these areas. These 2 areas, finance and accounting and policies and procedures, would be needed by any council. And in addition to my job experience, I also have a master's in public administration. As you know, public administration is about the management and administration of government, local government, state government, even federal government. People that have degrees in MBA work in government. I never worked in government, but I have a degree in that.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I appreciate that. My second question is a little bit more specific. My college is about to receive approximately $2 million in COVID relief money. As a commissioner, if you were able to help allocate that money this year, what type of things would you like to do with that money and why?
First, I have to understand exactly what is being done for COVID relief, what has been done already, and what has not been done. Look at that sort of see kind of what has been done and what has not been done. So look to see what kind of improvement has been made. I have not been commissioner, I have not been aware of what COVID actions have been done. I know what the CDC is recommending, what the hospitals are doing, what the physicians are doing, but I'm not specifically aware of what the specific things or Township has done. So I have to see what we have done. And if that is consistent with all the guidelines of CDC regarding what the Township should be doing, so I can see, looking at that, look at the head, an auditor's eye, what can be done to improve. An auditor is not a, maybe I should have not even used talking about my auditing, because all people have a little bit of fear with the word audit. So we especially, all the audits I have done are audits on request. So it's looking at to see how it can be improved, what can be done to make it better, or what can be done to improve what has been done already. So that would be what I do.
Okay, very good. And I have time to do about 1 minute and 20 seconds. 1 minute. Okay, I'll ask just a follow-up question then. How have you been, or have you had experience volunteering or serving Township?
In the Township, not in the, but I have attended Township meetings and various, I live in Manchester, right here, and then there have been meetings that are involving with society and also the involvement next to it. There have been township meetings, but I have not volunteered in any kind of township activity.
And you're speaking of the development next door to.
There were actually one of our neighbors was organized, had filed a petition in response to some development work that was being planned. So he requested me to come. I came to Central View.
Okay. Okay, great, thank you. Okay.
All right, Jamal, my question to you is, what do you perceive or what do you understand to be the role of a commissioner?
The role of the commissioner, my understanding is that are the governing body of the township. So the commissioner's role would be to make sure the proper governance of all of the activities of the township, all the activities of the township does to fulfill its responsibility to the citizens of township. That would include, first and foremost responsibility would be to maintain the financial stability of the township so that you can do what you're supposed to do, financial stability. Given that, to make sure that there's proper infrastructure, roads and highways infrastructure, so that people can drive and go to work and go to their home, to make sure that is administered properly, to make sure there's a adequate supply of safe drinking water, because that's extremely important for the health and safety of the residents. Next thing would be to make sure there is a proper public safety, which includes having an effective police force, having an effective emergency response function, to make sure that there's an effective fire department. I never did the fire department. I want to be sure that there's a fire in my house. The fire department shows up. If I need any fire station, unsafe policemen will show up in my house. If we get actually there have been few false alarms, policemen were there. Working. So those things that make sure that when there is a development, there's plans for the township. Some development of projects with proper consideration of concerns about quality of life issues, of concerns about the environmental concerns, which is a very big concern. Actually, I was just reading the book by Bill Gates on how to save the you know what I'm talking about. So there are a lot of things that townships can do in protecting the environment to make sure all those concerns are addressed in the overall governance of the governance by the commission. Because commissions are the rule-making body. The rules and regulations are made, they're enforceable, they're understandable, they're people follow, and change the rules when they need to be changed.
Thank you. All right, let's put this in. All right, my next question to you is, it's an easy one, hopefully for you. What do you see as the most, in your eyes, as the most wonderful quality of South Whitehall Township?
South Whitehall, the most wonderful quality would be it is a beautiful place, natural, beautiful, a lot of natural beauty in South Whitehall Township. Another thing that I like, I worked in Philadelphia for 15 years. And it was easy for me to do that because of the location of South Township. South already so very well located. It's close to the turnpike, very close to the turnpike. It's close to the airport. I travel a lot on business. I used to travel a lot close to the airport, close to all the shopping. So the location of South Township is excellent. The natural beauty and the public safety, whenever we needed to, actually, police came to my house many times, mostly because of false alarm from the police system. But the fact that they were there immediately, that made me feel good. That made me feel that we have a very good police department. So things like that are one of the having all public safety issues are concerned. I attended some of the meetings and I saw how the commissioners address the concerns of the citizens. So these are all good things about us. I really have nothing bad to say, no complaints.
Like the minutes, about 30 seconds, section, under Commissioner Wall.
Okay. I don't even realize we're both looking at products all night.
Oh, yeah, I was thinking about it. What they have done, I remember.
Yeah.
You were finance, or finance.
No, I was an engineer.
Yeah, I think I saw, I remember that. I saw the name of this man down the top. I used to work together, right?
Oh, no, we retired 7 years ago. So, along the lines of your background in internal audit, you highlighted finances. We have a very current topic where Pennsylvania has a statutory requirement for financial audits to be completed annually. And the township has not completed the audit for the last 10 years, although work is being done now with labor audits. What's your viewpoint about this situation?
I'm sorry, can I repeat the question again? What is it that you're asking me? You say
The township has 10 years of outstanding for which work required state.
Okay.
And your background in internal audit, what is your viewpoint about the situation?
About that particular situation?
Yeah.
Well, I'm concerned about why they were not fired. I was very concerned about it. We'd like to meet with the township. Do you have an auditor? Do you have a township and external auditor?
Yeah.
Do you have an external accountant that does the financial report of the township?
We have an internal finance department and an external.
Okay, so that's how, first thing I would do is meet with them and understand exactly what's going on. Why the situation is what it is. Try to really understand exactly what the reason for the situation is. Then on that, I give you my opinion as to what should be done, how I can contribute to that.
Right. Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you. What have you done to learn more about South Whitehall Township government prior to this year?
Well, I looked through on the internet. On the internet, look through the internet, first on the internet as to what do the commissioners do, look at who the commissioners are, and I talked to some people who were very actually prior commissioners. In fact, I talked to I talked to two prior former commissioners. Actually, they told me not to mention their names. So, but they are completely good, both different parties. Not from the same party. I talked to two former commissioners. They gave me a very good understanding of what the job is all about and what company meeting. They gave me a very good understanding. Actually, both of them were commissioners for 8+ years.
Okay.
8+ years.
Okay. And similar question, what have you done to increase your knowledge about current South Whitehall Township issues that the township is addressing right now?
There's two issues. One is the waiting ban issue, that's the rich part. Those are the two issues that some issues regarding the 245 very concerned with those issues.
Right. Okay. You mentioned it briefly. To what extent have you attended board of commissioner meetings, planning commission meetings, or zoning hearing board meetings?
Not very many. I've attended some. I attended one recently, was on topic. I saw you there. So you the one is last one.
Yep.
So one recent, I saw you there.
Okay. Well, I like it.
You have a minute left.
Wow. So our township, as far as zoning goes, our township doesn't currently have any agricultural zone.
Okay.
And we don't have any agricultural farmland reserve. We do have one preserved farm, but it's not agricultural. What's your view about this situation? What might you do about it?
About the establishing agriculture, because I see if there is a demand for it from the residents. there is a demand for agricultural zone, then we need to think about whether or not something that we can afford and that we can do based on our environmental concerns, based on our financial ability. So what we need to do is, if there is no agricultural zone, well, it's because there is not a demand for that. So we'll first find out whether or not there is a demand for it. If there is a demand for it, then we have to work with, if our citizens, our residents are asking for it, then we have to figure out how to provide it. So if we cannot plan for something because we don't have it, maybe because we do not need it. But we will be spending what we need it. Do we need it? Okay.
Commissioner Stratton, you're up.
Thank you for coming today, Jamal. It's nice to see you, nice to talk to you. In your letter to the township, you have mentioned that you have lived here now for 27 years.
Correct.
Very long time.
Yes.
And during those 27 years of residency, there have been some changes to the township in terms of development, in terms of primarily development. And my question to you is, during this time, is the development that you have experienced, was it a negative experience, a positive experience?
I think it's positive. I'm not, I don't have any negative views about any of the development that has been done. So my experience has been positive. My experience has been positive. I live very close by, only 2 minutes drive. So the development that I've seen, I've lived there 27 years, and I was driving around the township. Don't specifically know why are they doing that? That's ridiculous. That's terrible. I have not seen myself or saying that.
Have you experienced an increase in traffic, an increase in?
No, I have not seen an increase in traffic other than sometime on Peter Fair, something like that. Traffic. Other than that, really, I have not seen it mostly go over and then on, and I have not used any. I'm used to, again, you're asking me, someone who used to work in Philadelphia. I used to drive in. For me, that traffic is full here. So I have not, so my perspective is different. My perspective of traffic is different. So it will take me, I would take 7 minutes to reach up to King of Prussia. Then from there to Philly was 1 hour, 15 miles. So for me, that is fast. So I have never in sometimes 22 of course that works. 22 going east or west. 22 is bad.
Do you feel safe at home?
Do I feel safe when I get home?
Do you feel safe in general?
Of course, very much. We have never had a good living in 27. I've never had a situation dealing with burglary or any break-ins. I never had that. We feel very good. That's the reason why we live in Scotland.
In the 27 years that you have lived here, you ever had a complaint against management or anything like that?
Against the Southwest Township management? No, I have not had any. I have applications to deal with people for different things. I have built actually 3 homes in Southwest Township. I bought the land. I built one on Valley Road, one on Service Place, one on Cross. I built 3 homes. I have to deal with different people that are approved to different permits, different things. I have not had any with anybody.
Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you for the background. So what we will do with as a board later this year, of course, will be another round of budget. So if, for example, we were faced with a budget deficit this year in the fall, we would need to make two choices, either to make some reduction in some services
going to be tough decision to make. Basically, I think don't you have to get like the opinion of the public in terms of taxing. Taxing is a very unpopular, but sometimes it has to be done. It has to be done to meet something that's very necessary for public safety and for public good. So you have to weigh that versus reduction of services, which can be what services. There are services that can be reduced without really compromising public safety, without compromising quality of life. If there are things that can be cut, where you can get money from for the budget, like having access to the really, well, it'd be nice to have, but not necessary. We're looking at those kind of things before getting into raising taxes.
On a more practical level, often as commissioners, we get asked questions by the public if they've got a concern, and maybe or whatever. If you were to hear a concern like that, if you're a commissioner, what steps would you take to see that concern is resolved?
If there's a concern that I know how to, for example, there's a concern about something that I know the office can handle, and I know who that is, I can suggest that they go there, or if it's a matter that should be reviewed by the board, and then I'll suggest they bring it to the board. So there's always ways to direct people to the proper channel. Not every little thing has to come to the board, but if I know something can be done by someone who is a person, you get to go see that person. If someone is something matter dealing with a question about the police or fire department, go there from there.
And I have you 2 minutes to, okay. If you were elected to be a commissioner, how would you work to involve residents in the decision-making process?
Through increased communication, through various social media, to the newspaper. A lot of times people, the residents are not involved, not because they're not interested, but sometimes they don't know. So increased communication and information, and the use of like for example, I attended that meeting because the car the looking card, and sometimes it's taken those things get lost with all the judgment. But that was an attempt to that meeting. And also these days, the Zoom meetings, use of the Zoom. But sometimes for people to drive to somewhere, it's another extra work. If you give the option to attend the meeting in addition to live, but Zoom meeting or any other one of those Zoom or Microsoft meeting, then you get a lot more involved and a lot more.
Yeah, about 40 seconds. So first of all, I love that you called the notification code attractive. We need to make all of our cards attractive. That's great. Then we can
don't get mixed up.
We'll get lots of people in meetings. So my question to you is, anytime you start with a new, anybody that starts a new board or commission, there's a level of awareness, of course, and it's a teamwork approach. So how do you see yourself as a team player, and how do you get yourself to a situation where you know there's more to learn? So how do you place yourself? How do you picture yourself as a team player?
First of all, I know I'm not interviewing to be the mayor of I'm interviewing to be a team member. So this is a team job. If I'm not trying to be the president now, she was mayor, but I'm trying to be one of the team members of the team that governs our country. The job itself is a team job. So I cannot come here and do this, do that. I got to first you learn in any new job is to learn through observing. First couple of meetings will be observing to see what's going on, what's happening, and who does what, and who's best. You're 41 individuals here. You each have bring something unique to this state and see who is expert in what, and then figure out how I can do that. And what I can add in. What I can add in, like I can see you what you can do better, you see what you can do better, see what I can do better. But that's all. So I know it's a team job. It's not the job of a man or the county executive, it is a team job.
Great. I'm super good. You have been, oh, wow, that's 3 whole minutes.
Sure.
So, as a commissioner, you'll often be in situations, and that you'll have a room or a situation where you have very different opinions. And there's a lot of times there can be a lot of emotion in the room. How do you see yourself handling that in probably more controversial topics, things like that?
I think I didn't mention it in my also that I'm currently in 2 boards already, 2 boards, but I've been in 2 professions. I've been in I'm in the profession in child audit, and then I was the chief ethics officer for my company, Jamal. So I'm in the ethics and compliance profession. I'm on the national board of Ethics and Compliance Association of America, which is actually a big organization where companies like Google, Facebook, and Walmart, Marriott, they're all members of it. So I was elected to be a member of the board of directors of that organization. In addition, I'm on the members of the board of directors of the Whitehall Association. So this is what I was doing those things while I was working on. So I know like the Ethics and Compliance Association board is 15 members. Ethics and Internal Audit board is 16. So I know how the different personalities. Is everything unanimous and then all these boards? Absolutely not. There's always the voting. 12-3 or 12-4 or 9-6, and there's always so you make your case. There's an issue, then you do the best. Then you present your views based on what you think is right. That's what you like. It's not necessarily pressuring others, but you got selected in this position. I believe that you selected me to give my honest opinion about things. So it's not to force anyone to pressure anyone to wear out things, but I will keep my opinion to the best of to what I sincerely believe is the right thing for the township. The point I'm making is that I'm used to working in boards. I've been actually board member. I was first elected in a board in 2016 for distributive and child auditors. Then I was elected on the board of directors of Ethics and Compliance Association in 2018. So my peers have elected me. The 2 professions that I have worked in my whole life. I've been in the board of governors, board of directors.
Okay. So as a bit of a segue from discussion, and again, your role and responsibility. So in the past, what have you ever done, or what would you do if you discovered that there was an incident where somebody did something illegal or unethical? Have you ever had to report that type of thing within your company, and how did you go about do that?
Sure. In my company that I work for, the board are a highly ethical company. They had a lot of tolerance for incompetence. But zero tolerance for unethical behavior. Zero tolerance for If somebody, you did something, you stole money from the company, your fault. But if you're given a job, you try and do it, you work with you. Your work will be good, that makes you feel better, make you better on it. If you don't get fired from it, you will actually get fired, but you don't get fired from your first mistake. That's true, there are also. In fact, I don't get fired. So it's zero tolerance for lack of ethics. And also zero tolerance for willful non-compliance. Sometimes non-compliant people, non-compliant with things, if they ignore the law, they're non-compliant because it is a mistake. But if you're willfully not compliant with the law, federal law or state law, then not follow it. But innocent, non-compliant people sometimes non-compliant, so they don't even know. They don't even know that. I don't know why they didn't know. They generally don't know. Because they even don't know that they're supposed to do it this way. So if there's a willful non-compliance, then it's not wrong. If unethical behavior, that's not. That's all I think.
Okay, thank you. Could you please describe a government that is open and transparent with the public?
The government that is open and transparent from the local government.
Yeah, so if you were to say South Whitehall is an open and transparent government as it faces the public, what would you see?
I would call that, from my experience with what I'm going to see, all the public meetings that I have. When the meeting, like the example, the meeting that I was on the 22nd. So I saw you, I think it was an example of transparency, example of communicating with the residents, communicating with the residents and getting their feedback. So I would consider South Whitehall Township as a transparent organization, government.
That's how we do the meetings.
Very good, the meetings, and we meet with the meetings, public meetings.
Okay. Now,
Again, I have actually, I'm not like I've celebrated. This question is a little bit uncomfortable to answer. It's not like I have not gone and I've not done a study of how they do things in Bethlehem, how they do things in my country. I'm not based on my, I'm not sure to answer the question. There is suggestion, I'm not celebrating. And I put out all of it. I've not done that kind of study. I'm just giving a response based on my experience. Well, my experience is good, positive, right? That I would say.
good. Thank you. So, well, keep this general, not too technical, but so the township is updating its comprehensive plan with guidance, what development will have and what type of development will have. In order to make changes, one must change the zoning ordinance. So from just being a citizen, what type of zoning changes might you want to see the township enact?
Zoning, regarding zoning, they must consider quality of life issues. Zoning to consider the traffic issues. Those two issues must be considered. For example, if we have a residential area, and we should make sure that we don't establish a fast food chain right next to a residential area. So there should be zoning to the proper segregation of the appropriate things in the township, residential areas, shopping centers, parks and recreation. So all those issues to be considered. So the quality of life concerns, public safety and infrastructure concerns are properly addressed, and traffic concerns.
Commissioner Sexton.
I would go back, Jamal, to Commissioner Kelly's questions in regards to the COVID-19 grant.
Mm-hmm.
And where do you think it would be better spent? Do you think it would be better spent for small businesses or for people that are in need because of COVID, that is becoming some kind of hardship, or maybe create immunization center? What are your thoughts about it?
I think all those things are, the first thing I was thinking about being a business like that. See, there's some areas, I think, Whitehall, they have a vaccination center right now, by Dick's, their shopping center, by they have a vaccination center. I have not seen anything like that in South Whitehall. To encourage vaccination, so that people can walk in and get vaccinated, so that we get the herd immunity, according to CDC, 70% of the town or of an area has to be vaccinated. So center would be one area. And also to provide help to people that are needy, who have not been affected by COVID, but cannot really, have lost jobs, have been thrown out of cannot pay their rents and things like that. Some systems like that would be appropriate. I think all the things that you mentioned would be appropriate. It is not just something like it is not just this thing only. I was just vaccination centers only, just giving to the group of people who could not pay this. It has to be multiple things because the COVID has been such a disaster. It has affected many ways. You look at all the things and look at how what is needed more.
So you feel that the grant would be somehow divided between those three?
Different needs, yes.
So we still have a couple more minutes before we can go to conclusion. Have 8 minutes. What was it? How much time do you have? About 8 minutes. 7 minutes. So, Diane or Mike, do you have any quick questions left? It has to be quick. We'll get the last 5 minutes. Jamal, any questions? No? So, Jamal, we're going to close things up. First of all, we want to thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure to get to know you.
Thank you.
And to kind of close things up for a little bit, I'll ask a question to you. Do you have any questions at all?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Okay. First thing is that I see your name on the icon. I see your name on the icon. So you're running for the election, both of you.
Both of us are
You're running for the election, which means that you like the job. You like it. So I would ask you, what is it that you like about it? Why do you want? You don't have to give me again, but what is it you like about the job? Not. I don't want nothing for campaigning, please. But what aspects of being commissioner that you like?
I can answer that. I'll answer that. I guess it's, and it's good. I mean, whether you're running for reelection or not running for reelection, it would apply to Diane and Mike as well, and everybody has their own perspective. I love where we live. I love this township. I love all the qualities about it. It's a little bit of everything. It's been a great place for my kids to be born, grow up, go to school. It's a great place to live, work, and play. And what I hope is that we can continue to keep it that way and grow in a way that we maintain our unique characteristics. And I like to be a part of that. So that's why I love to be a commissioner.
I would say similar things. I've been living in the township now for 35 years. I raised a family. I love this place. One thing about all of us, all 4 commissioners, we care. We absolutely care about the township and what's going on. We don't agree on everything. It's clear we shouldn't agree on it because we have different lines of different issues. But caring about the township and everything that's happening in it is my prime reason for being here.
Very good.
Diane, Mike, do you have anything you want to add? We've got 1 more minute.
I didn't ask that, but I didn't see their name. No, we
They still have their reasons for being here.
So, in my life, I worked at a large corporation. Worked volunteered at 3 different nonprofits. And the reason I did that is I like to help people, and I like to help people who can't help themselves. So prior to running for election, I was a citizen advocate to try to provide the council on what the citizens would like to see. And then I ran for office because I thought, from being elected, I would be able to help the citizens and put a better position.
Becky, I'm going to very similar answer to Commissioner Wolf. Being a commissioner really is a volunteer position. It's about a liaison in government for the public. And it's an opportunity to give back to the community to help people, whether they're wanting something positive or they're in a difficult situation and they need someone to listen and advocate on their behalf. I spent my career in the dental profession, caring and taking care of patients for years, and I find that this is a little bit different, but similar, in that I'm able to help the community with their needs.
Very good. So my reasons for running would be very similar to what you said. So I'm glad to hear that. We have the same thought process as to why I want to be a commissioner.
Thank you very much. Jamal, thank you again for your time today, and we appreciate it very much.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, this is going to be recorded, just so I understand.
It's all recorded, yes.
And then it's going to be.
It's live, so the public will be able to see it, yes. Hi, how are you today?
Okay, Diane, how would you say?
Good. I know we serve on the planning commission together, but here's a question that I answered to you. I'm curious, what neighborhood do you live in, and where is your favorite place to spend time in Buffalo?
I live it's between just off of Forestfield Road, Atkinson Lane, which is between Forestfield and Lineville Road.
Okay.
So I'm very close to Cover Beach Park. That's probably my favorite area in the township. I live between the two schools, so when there's chances to get things going on in schools, I like to do that.
Thank you. We are going to be preparing our budget starting in the summer, going into the fall. If we were faced with a budget deficit, obviously we're in economic COVID time, and I'm curious if we were having to make a decision between reducing services or potentially raising taxes, if that's a need. Which way do you find yourself leaning, just as a practical question?
In fact, that's hard to do, but I would say in general, I would probably say more towards providing the necessary services. Of course, everybody wants to keep taxes low. That's the number one on everybody's list is to keep taxes low, and I understand that completely. But we have things that we need to do. So I would say that we need to make sure we have the funding available for all the necessary services. So we have to take a hard look at what are necessary services, what can we cut if we can cut. And that would be a budget, going through line by line in the budget, what makes sense and what doesn't. And that's going to be a difficult thing to do, and something that we have to do. Because that's what the job is. I think the budget is probably the most important job thing, board commissions have to do.
Understand. So the term that we're filling will be basically 7 months at the end of the year. What is it? Can you give us a couple of examples of what you might hope to accomplish in that period of time?
I think two things that are key in my mind. One is we have the issue that occurred in the past with the embezzlement and things like that. I think that needs to be cleaned up. We need to understand what happened. And I will tell you that I don't know where that stands completely now. I heard the discussion at the meeting last week, and there's things that are, there's questions that need to be answered. I think we need to answer them to the satisfaction of everybody in the township. The other thing that I think is critical is the comprehensive plan. And that is planning commission, but it's also the board of commissioners. I think we need to understand that. We need to figure out what do we want to do as a township? How do we want to set things up?
and how we live within the parameters that we could do with the township plan, with the comprehensive plan. What priority do we want to set? Where do we want to grow? Where do we want to preserve things? How do we do that? Can we get funding to say reserve farm, things like that? All of those things are going to be important. And again, it will come down to money in a lot of cases. What money do we have, and what does the community want to spend money on? I think that will be a key. What do people in this township think is important? There may be costs that are new, COVID may have taken some money, and we have to figure out where to get additional funds.
When I have on the slide, here's like 30 seconds. So, quickly, make a statement, we want to know the community wants to spend their money on. Here is an example of how we might reach out to the community.
I think with surveys, this is what we can do, but this is what it'll cost, and giving them examples and see what turns people on or off as we do that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Commissioner Sutton.
Well, thank you for coming up to a regular explanation. Clearly, you seem to be a world traveler, pretty much everywhere. How do you compare the whole world of political series to all of the concept? And I guess, is that by choice that you decided to stay here, or is it something you grew up here and stayed? But then you ever had a desire to move somewhere else? That could happen. I guess I got here, I grew up in Winter Valley, PA, which is near Ambler or Lansdale. Some of you may know Winter Mercy College, and actually I lived right near there, and used to play on the basketball courts and in the ball field and all that, until the nuns would chase me off the property. I'm allowed to play there. So that's where I grew up. That's about an hour from here. And I went to school at Drexel in Philadelphia, and I got a job at Catalytic, which was an engineering firm in Philadelphia, which happened to be owned by Air Products and Company. And then I got transferred to Air Products. I worked for a few years there, and so this is where my wife and I moved up here. Dolores was a teacher, and so she moved up to teach in Parkland, and then I worked at Air Products, and we raised our kids here. So it's been a great place for us to be. I didn't live in this house originally where I am now. I said I lived on Chris Drive, which is right in front of Greenwald's Firehouse. It was the Mile thing. So you've been active in the planning commission for quite some time. And as we mentioned earlier, it is a comprehensive zoning that's coming up into the township. And my question to you is, do you think you've been active in the planning commission? And my question to you is, do you think that the way that the public is involved with participation on this comprehensive plan, do you think it's adequate? More? I think there's always room for more. I think the comprehensive plan in my mind governs what we're doing, and you will see that with the plan from 2009. A lot of the development that's happening is based on that plan, and it's set up that way. And those things are put in motion, I think, at the time of the comprehensive plan. So it's a very important document for people who are concerned about it. To me, it's the document that you want to be aware of and understand and have input into. And that's what I chose to do at the time in 2008, 2009. I was on the zoning hearing board. And I said I wanted to be the representative of the zoning hearing board on the plan. And I'm very active in the construction of the plan, so if you don't like it, you can blame me. They think that they're
at the time, you may remember, the economy was a little bit different than it is now, and there was a feeling that we had to make South Whitehall have a reputation in the past of they not being too friendly to development. And there's a feeling that, if we are that way, the development's going to go elsewhere. Worse than too much development, through development at all, people going elsewhere. And so that's how that one goes. But I think those decisions are tough. It makes a big difference in what happens later on. Not too far down, like 10 years. So I think that's something that you really have to understand.
You think the township now is friendly here to developers?
I don't know if they are or not. I would say it's still similar to what it is. I think there's a reputation thing that happens if people think that South Whitehall stuff. And I think, to tell you the truth, in the house that I'm at now, I was very happy with South Whitehall and stuff because there were some questions with the builder that I couldn't negotiate as easy as when the inspector came from the township and said, nope, you're not doing that, change this around, which I wouldn't have had the ability to do. So I think it's a lot of advantages to being more strict to make sure that things are done correctly. And I'm fully supportive of that.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Joe. My question is this, and you've been on a variety of boards and commissions within the township, so you understand the dynamic. What do you perceive or understand the role of a commissioner to be?
The commission to me is the last word. That's a good question. I looked it up and I looked up, who's the commissioner. I couldn't find our rules. And maybe this is fine. It seemed like there were like dozens or hundreds of places where board of commissioners was you could go there, but it was
Different places,
yeah, the board of commissioners would decide this. So I would say it's just making sure that the township is managed well and that there is, the budget is set so the township can manage itself. This is the number one thing. And then also to be, making sure that we have the resources to comply with the rules and regulations. So those, and then with that comes budgeting. I think it's going to be still a number one thing. And that's not budgeting is number one, just about everything somebody's going to do. I think.
So, this question, I think it's a pretty easy question, and it kind of piggybacks off of Commissioner Cole's question as well. What do you find to be the most wonderful quality? If you pick one thing about Whitehall, what is it?
I would say it's just the community, the people, and what you can do here. I love this place, and that's getting back. That's why I moved here, and that's why I stayed here. It's a great place to live. We started out here, moved here, like I said, 5 years out of college. Moved up here with Doris, and we spent the rest of our time here, raised 3 kids. They're all into different places. They all moved to cities. Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York. So this actually isn't a bad place to be centralized to that. Now there's some good and bad that, but it's great from my standpoint. They moved to the cities. Now hopefully they're saying the cities aren't a perfect place to be. But so it's turned out just to be a good location for a lot of things. It's centralized and it's worked out good. I still find that a lot of people, I worked at Air Products and made a lot of friends there. And actually, I work now with Engineers Without Borders, and that there's a lot of Air Products people that went into that. And so I kept some of those friendships going, doing that.
Did I do it somebody? Mm-hmm. So, one other question I have for you is you have so much knowledge in planning, you've been involved in planning, obviously that's part of your background as an engineer, and you understand it. What are your thoughts and how would you help to continue to support education to the public? which is so crucial as we go through this comprehensive plan. What would be your perception of a good way to keep the public educated on what we can do and what we can't do, and understanding the ITC, all those different things?
I think putting a lot of information on the webpage is a key to that, making sure that there's information there that's easy to read, easy to find, and then having sessions with the community to talk about, this is what we're thinking of doing, and it's not today, it's in the future. So we want you to know, what's going on now so that you can understand what we're planning, the direction we're headed in the future. And I just think that's why it's so critical now to get that done, because we need to keep that, we need to start it with the plan, and then people understand it, and then you go and continue it as you work the plan.
Thank you. Mr. Wall?
Okay. Please say hello to Doris from Whitehall.
We do that.
So I have quick questions on all of this and group that you're very familiar with this information. From the comp plan and the underlying zoning change. And you wrote a lot about the comp plan, going forward. Doesn't it? So I'd like you to do, separate yourself from everything else. Separate yourself from the planning commission. And this is just you personally, as a citizen and possible board member. What is your vision for the township? In other words, if you have to say, I could make a comp plan in the section of the township, such and such, and I would like to make these zoning changes in order to achieve that goal, what zoning changes would you make?
I think we need to have zoning to preserve open spaces. I don't know the best way to do that. Like, there's different avenues that can be taken. I'm not sure zoning is necessarily the best one, but where you can do that, but I think there's going to be limits to that, down zoning, if you will, for people that say, hey, that's taking value of my property. Yeah, you can buy that development, right? And that is done in the farm, in the farm preservation things. I think the zoning needs to be, flexible to allow the community to develop. But I think we want to, map out the different sections and say you have to have everything. And so we need to do that. I think also if we do grow, and the planners can tell you, and we have that thing to say, there's X people moving into the Lehigh Valley, so a fraction of that is going to be coming to South Whitehall. And really, if you want a word, what business I'd say, I told this to some of the work we did vibrant. I think, I want a place that, change is going to happen. So I don't think we can say, we can't change anything, we like it the way it is. It's going to change. And I think we have to understand that the township is going to be constantly changing. That's a good thing if we manage it. So I don't think necessarily it needs to be limited to just Bill's ideas or Mike's ideas or whoever. I think everybody needs to put their thoughts in, and then we can figure out what we can do, because there are limits, planning, people have rights, and that's something Maria Mullane always said with the zoning hearing board is you can't take somebody's property. And we have to deal with that, but at the same time, you can't zone or exclude things out. So in my mind, maybe we can eventually, if you could look at it on a more regional basis, to say South Whitehall does this, and Mackenzie does that, and then maybe, there's something else in Northampton, and then trade, different uses are done, in different places. And, because not every use is, it's not going to look pretty. Not everything winds up looking pretty. Because there's some basic functions that have.
Okay. So with that, first I have a question is what zoning would you do? Is there any zoning that we would not do? So with that mentioned, the overlay districts, like they were instituted in 2014, and the properties who have the overlay districts, they all been developed. And, that's why we have some precedent. Land in the township, we have a whole northeast quadrant, if you will. That still will be developed over a long period of time. Based on the outcome that you see for the overlay districts, would you favor adding more overlay districts, or would you say, no, maybe we went too far and that's not the best approach? Where do you stand, your assessment on overlay districts?
And we're still learning because they haven't completely been mapped out. But I think my personal opinion is if it is done correctly, overlay districts could be something that adds to the vibrancy of communities. That, you can make them walkable, likable, those kind of things. A concern I know people say is this overdeveloped. I asked planning, asked Greg, what difference would it be for Ridge Farm, for example, with or without the overlay district? And the numbers are, I'm not going to be precise, but to be reasonably accurate. The number of units that could have been put into the TND, the traditional neighborhood development, without the overlay was about, say, 730, and with the overlay, it's like 770. That's the number of units. So the change didn't, overlay didn't change it dramatically as far as density. What it does do is it makes you have more like pods in the area and then open areas around it, and you have to the stores and the things. I do like the idea of having, stores and communities so you can walk to work, walk to a restaurant and things like that. I think that would make it feel like that. I do, and I think it does not change the density as much as some people do.
Okay, time's up.
Okay. Thank you, Bill.
We go around again?
Yeah, yes, we are actually. We have enough questions about growth. I appreciate it. I want to go back to a comment you made earlier. You mentioned the audits and whatnot. Just to circle back around. So if you were a commissioner, considering what we're dealing with right now with the township, do you have a sense of what you might like to see put in place to see us moving forward on a more firmer financial path?
To me, the thing is to make sure that there's a system now that will prevent whatever happened before from happening. That's to me more important than the audits themselves. So, something happened, and you need to have systems in place now to prevent that from happening. And there should be the full whatever is required, the rules, to do that. But it's going to require having some I think double, two people looking at the information, so that one person can't control completely a thing. And that's, I think, fairly standard methods of doing it. It just needs to be put in place. And it may already be put in place. Now, I'm not saying it's not there now. I'm not specifically familiar with it. I can't tell you what's there now. But my understanding is things did change.
And staying on this financial track, Whitehall is poised to receive around $2 million in COVID grant relief money. If you were selected as a commissioner and if this comes before the board this year, invest that money in the community, do you have a couple of ideas, things that you might like to see if you have the ability to do that?
Now, are there any limits on this, or?
Well, it's a little much, just curious, what
So if we have an extra $2 million,
you didn't expect.
I think I would want to make sure that we have all the things in place to grow. It might be utilities and things like that, but then also, support for the businesses here that need it. Because I think, the businesses that have been impacted the most are the service, the things that, help for them.
And then also making sure that, we have enough resources for our school and our community, whatever the community needs.
And I have 2 minutes to decide. What do you think, in your opinion, is your viewpoint? I know you're on the planning commission and have dedicated an awful lot of time there, but if you look at the township as a whole, can you give me an example of what you think the 3 most pressing concerns as a community we're going to have, for example, moving forward for the next 5 years? What would you say?
I think making sure that as we grow, we don't fill the goose, if you will, to make sure that the planning, makes it so that we're not overcrowded, that we put things in place so that people can move around, that we're not, living in traffic jams, and that people have the services and things that they need here, that there's enough open space and parks that, people can go play. The schools, are there around so they can, have open space at the schools is also where like a lot of kids play ball and things like that. And just think it's making sure that all of those things are available. So people say, yeah, I can stay here on the weekend and have fun, in South Whitehall, go to the movies or I can, play in the park, bike around, do those things. And also do all that safely and not in a, overly crowded way.
Am I, 20 seconds? Okay,
I shouldn't say impressed, but I was hearing you saying that the audits are not the most important. What kind of resonated with me because, as you know, we had an investment, and the investment was for 15 years, and during those 15 years, there were audits. Nobody knew about the investment, nobody caught the investment. So the audit versus what's going on in the township, the financial township, is probably something that's not discovered, rediscovery very, very properly. So that's just my take on that. The other question being the planning commission, I'll ask questions I asked before. Have you experienced any major changes in development that were either affected the life for the good or the bad in the last 5 years, 10 years?
I say, to me, the township is as good, I still love this as a place to live. So I would say, I mean, is there more traffic at this intersection and that intersection? Yeah, there are. And you can see that there's been some intersections now that have become, I'll say, more major. There used to be a stop sign, 4-way stop sign. When I was commuting home from Air Products on Citrone Road and come to Sylvan Street, or actually Broadway, it was a 4-way stop sign. We had now things as a 2-way stop sign. You have to know which one is going to hit you when you pull out. But now it's like, a much busier place. And so we've seen that growth. And, there are still other ways to get around. You can still see a lot of the countryside figures going in different ways. And we still need to be sure we preserve. We kind of have to decide people's community. And that's what the comp plan does is, what can we do to preserve the open space and make sure it's going to be a place that we all want to stay and live in.
Open space is very important. Everybody wants that. With development, other than talking about apartments and housing and all that, comes also the commercial part. Target, all the other stores that we have had here for years and then they came up, and I'm sure we're all enjoying it. Do you feel like the commercial portion of it is that's important?
Yes, I do. Because you need Target, you need food, and so you need a place to go. It's I think a good thing that you don't have to travel as far to get the basic needs
and Target provides a lot of that. And you know, the pharmacies and the grocery stores and all those things are needed, those services, you know, are needed, as well as places to go just to relax, or places to eat, you know, to get out and see people, you know, see movies. That is all part of the problem. Mm-hmm.
So what would you do if you were given the opportunity? How would you prepare yourself for the challenges of being a commissioner? There's, there's oftentimes a lot of, well, and you see it too on planning too, controversial issues and emotions in rooms and things like that. So how would you best prepare and how would you get yourself up to speed to being a commissioner and being a part of the team?
Well, the first thing I would do is, as you all, what you found to be the most important things to do. And I did start looking at the rules just so I could answer those questions, and I didn't get as far as I want to be honest with you. There's, you know, I'm comfortable with many of the rules of the planning, but there's a lot of aspects that I haven't paid close attention to. I do look at the township budget and things like that when they come out to see what's going on. And to me, really, that's kind of the focus. Where does the money come from and where does it go? And are we doing that right? I just think those are two basic questions that are, you know, the first thing that happens is, you know, you're not getting the service or you're taxing too much. You know, you need to come to a balance in all those so that you're giving the best service you can for the people that, you know, what they want, you know, for the amount, you know, and for the amount that they can afford. And I think putting that all together is important. Now, there's other things too, you know, with security and things like that. You know, as I was home today, I was watching, you know, there's a bunch of police stories now in Louisville and Minneapolis that, you know, are issues that, you know, there's issues here that we have to deal with too on that area. That's something that I don't have a whole lot of experience with. To be honest, that just came up in my mind today as I was watching. There are big things on you know, with those communities, and it's happening all over. But, you know, there's issues with security and you know, and we have to deal with them. And I don't know if the commission would get overly involved, but it's still have to give the resources to make sure that things will be done, the resources and the training.
And I would assume you would have had to have done this when you first came on planning or when you first came on jury. How did you prepare yourself and educate yourself to get up to speed with the group? How did you do that?
Just to read what's going on, and first thing I'll say is that our township has a lot of excellent people in it that, you know, I've been able to use as resources to understand it. And I think, I mean, that's something that has to be, you know, continued, is that, there has to be adequate resources for the township to operate, and then learn from them. And then there's, you know, just learning by talking to people too, you know, what's going on. So I think, you know, it's doing a number of different things. There's a lot of different ways to get informed and get different information from different sources. And it doesn't always match. And you have to decide, you know, what makes sense here. How can I put this together to make it the best I can?
So in terms of that, I might have touched on this already, I'm not sure if I did, but, you know, it all comes down to being a team player and you know, finding out what you bring to the table. So if you have the opportunity to sit on the board of commission, what do you think would be your special skill that you would bring?
I really think that I've been living here for 40 years, so I know different things going on. I know what it's like to have family, you know, have a family growing up here. And I've also been involved in planning now for a significant amount of time, and I think all of those are key things to be here. And the other thing is I want this to be a place that people want to come to. Maybe not too many people, but you know, I think if you want to make this a place to say, where do I want to go? I think you want it to be South Whitehall, that they say, look at this is a nice place. And I think our job here is, you know, whether it's planning commission or the board of commissioners, keep it a nice place.
Absolutely. Thank you. Commissioner Wall?
Okay, so a few questions on some familiar territory. Just like a role change, if you were successful from being an advisor to the final decider. So on the planning commission, can we give an example of a development waiver request that you did not approve because the waiver would have jeopardized public safety?
That's good. I know that there was one, I don't know that I have any that didn't approve for that reason, but I do evaluate each of them. I know one that came up that was controversial, that I did say that it was, for example, the extra exit from on Walford Avenue.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay, for the reform. And, that one was one where I understand it's good. There's different viewpoints, but the one I went with was, and did not feel it was an issue, even if our township board, would have thought that was a problem. I do, as you know, I grew up in air products where, safety issues are constantly evaluated. And I look at them all, but you also have to live. And so we have to go there. And it's not just with safety issues, there's also what makes sense. And by the way, I guess another one that I did look at, the question would be, say, the extra roadway in Ridge Farm. So that I think, even though that's on a steep area, I think it actually, the other side of it is it takes traffic off of the main roads, Cedar Crest, Huckleberry, and Walworth, and allows local traffic to stay local. I think that's actually a safer way, even though you could say, well, there's a steep incline. So I think it's not just that I do look at, how it will impact safety, but from a holistic viewpoint.
Okay. What do you see the role of the salary?
It gives guidelines on how you can develop, and it will have very specific guidelines for a lot of things. But then it gets to, there are aspects that you can't regulate everything perfectly because land everywhere is different. So you can't have all the regulations different. That's the purpose of a lot of the variances and waivers, is because there are situations that could not be envisioned in the regulations, and that's why I think so. That's the role, is to make an overall. Here's the requirements, and then you develop from that a plan that meets the intent of those requirements.
The salary safety.
In some cases, it is.
Okay. Go read the opening paragraph of salary.
Okay.
And you'll see what the purpose is. Okay. Generally speaking, could you describe a government that is open and
I think you have the documents are available to anyone who wants to see them. And also you have a clear trail of the money, where it comes from and where it goes, and how it's collected and how it's spent. And I think, and then to allow, that there should be public, open to public, as much as possible. And there may be times we say, we can't get things done, with too many people. If you get input, you may have some work groups, and then broadcast to you again. Here's what we did with that input. We did this work. Here's the result. What do you think? I mean, there may be steps along the way that are not completely, public viewing everything, but still, I I think that's still transparent, and you're not hiding it, you're just, working. So I think the key thing to me is, you know, make sure everybody knows what's being decided and how, and then where is the money being, spent.
Okay. This is tough, that's my head.
That's the job.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Bill, we're going to save the last 5 minutes on we all have an opportunity to ask you some questions. So we're going to open the floor up to see if there's any questions that you may have from anyone.
So I guess what do each of you think is the most important part in the development of South Whitehall? You know, where do you want to see things change or stay the same, or what do you want to protect? And how do you think we should go about doing that? My question.
I think it all comes down to balance. We have a requirement to meet all sorts of types of development and land use, as you well know, with the SWT. So we need to be forward thinking as a community. We need to decide and plan on how to balance open space and be able to provide some ag preservation, but still not take away the rights of people who own property. So how do we do that? We have to find some creative ways of doing it. You know, it's interesting. I look at one of the perfect examples on how we've been so successful in doing that is Kohler Bridge. That's a great example of the township taking the opportunity for a space and purchasing it and then preserving it into a passive park place, preserving that property. So, you know, that's where I think we need to go. It has to be a balance.
I certainly think we should look back to our 2009 plan to see where I'm not so successful goals in that plan and build on them. Looking back a little touch of the future. I certainly think balance is very important, but we need to do more than just use these words that are very common in most communities today. We've seen warehouses come in and growth throughout the region. I think we need to really hone in on to take some specific steps as a township to safeguard and protect moving forward.
Mr. Wall?
I like what Commissioner Kelly said. I was going to say at the end, you and I come from a place that does lessons learned. You know, so I do think that going back to the lower first time. I would agree with general answers. I would like to see us have more moderate growth. I'd like to reduce the density of the growth in any one particular area. You know, we develop a more reasonable density standpoint. Farmland preservation, we currently have 0 agricultural farmland reserve, to be greater than 0. We have to respect the property rights, you know that yourself. But there's a multitude of methods we can use to preserve farmland. We have neighboring townships that have hundreds of acres of preserved farmland that can be to, you know, kind of bootstrap our operation and get that going. And we talked about the overlay districts a little bit. I mean, I look at what's happened with overlay districts and lessons learned is probably too much too soon. I agree with people who say maybe it should have been a trial on a small property rather than a fortified on large properties. So I wouldn't roll overlay districts out going forward, but I think it needs to be like very specific select cases of where it could best apply, as opposed to, you know, rezoning and now we got 10 more overlay districts. I agree.
Mr. Sutton?
as you mentioned, growth does not stop. It will continue. We have to deal with it as best as we can. Open space is always welcome. And I think zoning is very crucial as to where we develop and what we develop. But I don't think that assuming that and taking the rights of landowners, to assume that we can stop or grossly reduce development based on owner's rights is not going to happen. So we just have to deal with that the best we can.
Bill, thank you so much for your time today. We really do appreciate it. And so we do have some time for